3 shoots, a wedding, and a trip to Japan. Has the Nikon Z6III lived up to my expectations? What are the things that I wish were better? And most importantly, what are we eating here our first night in Tokyo? Spoiler, it's usually just convenience store snacks. Now, the Nikon Z6III. I was on the pre-production release of this camera, and if working with pre-production cameras and getting invited to press events or something that interests you, I have a full 3-hour video series and breakdown out now about it. And for the first 100, there is a special deal that comes with a lot of bonuses. So check that out if you're interested. I also teach you what we do to get paid to come to Japan to make videos, and it's probably not the business model that you're expecting. But the camera, it is so nice to be back on Nikon Ergonomics. It is very, very nice to hold. If I was using larger lenses like the 51-2, I would probably get the optional battery grip, but for smaller lenses like this, I am very happy with the balance of the camera as it is. I've actually used this 40mm lens more than I expected. I like this lens a lot. It's lightweight, easy, good enough aperture for shallow depth of field, fast autofocus, and just a nice time all around.
My favorite tree, well, I'm offering a steady hand. I could be your security, but there's no guarantee on anything.
Now, let's get to 2 things that I wish were different. And there are just actually 2 only. Number 1, please Nikon, start writing video to 2 card slots. People hear that it can only write to 1 and they don't believe it. They're like, in this year, that's impossible, show me. And then you just only can write to 1 card slot on video mode. So please fix it. It is a big deal to a lot of us that shoot hybrid photo video. Number 2 is more of a minor one. The USB-C charging, similar to Canon, I think it requires a full PD, which means that if you just plug it into a wall with a regular, maybe an iPhone brick, there is no charging that's going to happen. You need to use something with more watts like a MacBook Pro charger. I like Sony because it will charge faster on a bigger brick, but it also will just do a slow charge if it's on a smaller brick. And for me, this is fine because I'm usually plugging this in overnight, so if it takes a while to charge, it doesn't really bother me too much. And it would also just be cool to have USB-C ports in the bottom of batteries like some of the third-party ones do, so you can just plug right into the battery and charge, and you don't need a charger. My Nikon Z6III did not come with a charger, and I'm not sure if that's standard or not. If it does come standard, please Nikon, send me my charger. Thank you.
And I'll take care of you along the way. My love, one day at a time, will leave our troubles behind. And you'll take care of me along the way. My love, one day at a time, will leave our troubles behind. Here with you in our treetop view, well, it takes me to when I was young. I felt
The Nikon Z6III is a partially stacked sensor, and what that means is that you get fast readout speeds, but then you also save a little bit of money on it not being a fully stacked sensor. I don't shoot a lot of fast moving things or sports, so a fully stacked sensor really isn't that important to me. Some other things that I guess are nice to have, but I definitely don't use: pre-release capture. Maybe if I was into bird photography and I was waiting for that owl to take off and bird in flight, and other things like their enhanced nighttime photography features like starlight view, and you can change your display to warm colors. Plus, you can do shutter speeds up to 15 minutes, something that I don't find myself using too often at wedding days. The 24 megapixel sensor is also great for everything that I do. It also probably helps the high ISO performance of the camera in some way, but I'm not a scientist. Either way, the high ISO performance of this camera is great, and the files, as you come to expect from Nikon, are amazing. And I'm gonna say that Nikon files are my favorite files to work with across all brands in the industry. The Nikon Z6III comes with silent electronic shutter, which I haven't used a whole lot yet. This is something that I will be including in future videos about this camera though. From other reports, it seems like there are no real issues using this camera in silent shutter, even all the time. As a wedding photographer, primarily, I would be a little hesitant. Just don't take this advice and start using this camera in harsh LED lighting immediately, but I have not heard any horror stories yet. The autofocus system is fast and keeps up with anything that I've needed it for. I typically shoot this camera on full wide autofocus points all the time and have had had no issues with eye or face detect. If there are too many people in a scene, I will sometimes switch to 3D tracking mode, which is my other favorite autofocus mode. And I only really use those two autofocus modes on the camera, and I'm an AFC all the time. Nikon also lets you switch between faces in a scene easily. It will give you left and right arrows when it detects multiple faces. Now, let's talk price. In North America, this is at a great price, and it's a bit expensive in some other countries around the world, which kind of push it awkwardly close to Z8 price territory. For me here in Canada though, it's for sure Nikon's best all-around camera at the best price. For wedding photography and photos of people and photos of Japan, it's everything that I need it for and then some. The video specs are pretty incredible in this camera, and there is no chance I will use even half of what this camera is capable of. I'm very happy it has 4K 60 with no crop. I do a lot of hybrid photo video coverage, and it's very nice to have the same field of view from my lens when switching from photography to video modes. Switching from photography to video is also really easy with this nice button here, and the buffer clears super fast. If you are shooting a lot of photos, switching to video mode, you're likely not going to have to wait any time at all to start recording that video clip. Now, for the screen, I am a big fan of fully articulating screens, but I know that opinion is not shared with everyone. In a perfect world, cameras would come with two options, a fully articulating option and a tilt option. I guess actually they kind of do when it comes to the Sony a7R5 and the Sony a9 Mark III. Let's just have their style of screen on every camera now, please. Touchscreen is also great, and the LCD monitor and viewfinder I consider to be the best in the industry for me right now. Easy to see outside, and the EVF is great, even though I don't actually use the EVF a whole lot. I mentioned this at the start, but the ergonomics are incredible, including the button placement and dials. Everything feels very nice and solid. One of the things I mentioned on my settings video that seemed to help a lot of people was that Nikon is great because they separate automatic ISO from regular ISO range. So you can't scroll all the way to the bottom of your ISO range and then find yourself an automatic ISO, and then all of a sudden you're at ISO 64,000 when you don't want to be. If you do want to enable or disable auto ISO, you hold the ISO button and you move the front wheel either left or right to go in and out of auto ISO. And that might not be the most intuitive design out of the box, which is why I mention it, but you don't have to go inside the menus to switch to or from auto ISO. Some other nice to haves in the future would be some sort of multi-shoe interface on the Nikon hot shoe for microphones, or for DJI connectors, so that you can just use your wireless system and not have to go into the microphone jack. It seems like they've hit a lot of home runs in the full frame market, and they've been ignoring the DX crop line a little bit. So maybe we're gonna see a smaller form factor APS-C X100 style offering, since Fuji has already proved how successful this space can be. Nikon is already designing with retro aesthetics, so it's pretty much there. There is room for improvement on the hype train that is the X100 and with more competitors in that space means more innovation will happen, and also means that you could probably actually buy one. All things considered, the Nikon Z6III is an incredible offering, and I am very, very happy with it. I actually sold my Nikon ZF for it, which wasn't something that I thought I was going to do when I first heard about this camera. I now split my time between Sony and Nikon because of YouTube and not because it's a smart thing to do. Another decision maker in that for me is that Sony will run my video to 2 card slots, where Nikon, 1 card slot only. If I was going to go full Nikon wedding photographer, I would be going with 2 Z6IIIs. That said, another great option would be if you get a Z6III and a ZF, if that camera also appeals to you. For lenses, I haven't shot the 35 f1.4 yet, but I suspect it will be on the top of my list. At the top of that list is also the entire suite of f1.8 S primes. The Tamron 35 to 150 is also a must-have for Z series. So happy to see it as part of that. And if you want to get crazy, you can get the 50-1.2 because it's beautiful, but it's heavy and expensive. I've also become a big fan of the Tamron 28 to 75 f2.8 G2 recently, even though it's probably the exact same lens as the Nikon branded version. It's a bit confusing that there's 2, but it's been a great do everything lens on a wedding day. And there'll be a full video coming up, I think in 2 or 3 days, where I do behind the scenes wedding day, and I only use that lens. If you are going that route of 28 to 75, get a wide lens just for safety if you are at a wedding. You can also get discount f-mount glass that's amazing and run it through the FTZ adapter. I am such a huge fan of the 58 f1.4, as well as pretty much everything that's in that G line of lenses for DSLR. And now we're off to explore Japan. If you're interested in making a serious run at YouTube this summer and making it a new income stream over the next year, get one of those first 100 video sets available. You get access to a ton of bonuses, including videos about becoming a brand ambassador, scripts that I use for brand deals, and a lot more. As always, a 100% money back guarantee. If you get it, it's not for you, send me an email, I'll send your money back. You can also watch this video here on the screen if you want to learn more about that video series. See you next time. I'm still here.